have another great show for you today. It is Thursday. We'll be joined to respond to how judges are preventing, blocking, and getting in the way of Donald Trump's agenda. It'll be a really fascinating interview, so look forward to that. I am joined today by Linda. It'll be a really fascinating interview, so look forward to that. I am joined today by Linda Tran. So nice to see you, Linda.
Nice to see you. I feel like it's always far too long in between our times together,
Indeed. How have you been?
I'm good.
Good.
What's on your radar?
Happy to tell you. Let's get right into it. 4 years, the Democratic political have drawn morbid comfort from the fact that Donald Trump supporters were, frankly, quite old on average. The Trump phenomenon, they believed, had an expiration date sometime in the near future. Young voters would replace their parents and grandparents as demographics shifted, and all would be right, or rather left, with the world. The 2024 election has shattered these hopes. Trump's gains with young people are so massive that Gen Z might as well be called Gen might as well be called Gen Trump. Data guru David Shor laid bare this stark reality in an interview with the New York Times' Ezra Klein last week that we've discussed a little bit on the show, but I wanted to go over it again because, man, are these numbers interesting. Shor walked Klein through the ramifications of his polling insights and voter analyses, which reveal a historically unprecedented rightward shift among young people, particularly young males. You can feel it in the air. Trump won voters under the age of 26. White women, white men, and black men in this demographic all leaned in Trump's direction. Only black women did not. The former president won 18-year-old non-white men outright. Think about that. That is amazing, given historical trends. Young people, Shor notes, appear to be, quote, the most conservative generation that we've experienced maybe in 50 to 60 years. The reasons for this are not hard to grasp. First and foremost, Trump and his surrogates have become masterful communicators on Gen Z's preferred media platforms, podcasts, social media, and especially TikTok. When Trump arrived on the political scene a decade ago, he was a figure of cable news and of reality TV. Those are boomer broadcasting platforms. Thus, it's no surprise that older voters were his key contingent. The 2024 Trump campaign correctly surmised it would need to reach voters who reside outside retirement communities. The long-form podcast appearances would play to Trump's strengths, and moreover, the key podcasting personalities, Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, others, have come to evince a right-wing sensibility, if not exactly conservative politics. Their vibe is barstool conservatism. That's a phrase coined by the writer Matthew Walter to describe an ethos that is a little bit culturally libertarian like me, i.e. you won't find much opposition to gay marriage and abortion in such circles, and yet decidedly Republican in that it is wholly opposed to the hectoring, self-righteous tone of elite progressivism. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the other piece of the puzzle. Democrats lack both an appealing messenger and an appealing message. In fact, they seem to have forgotten how to relate to young men at all. For all its current woes, the Democratic Party must blame its cultural gatekeepers, progressive activists, elite media, and the campus radicals who conquered higher education over the course of the 2010s. Young men who came of age in this environment were met with outright hostility by a brand of liberalism that has no place for them, that viewed their very existence as an act of violence. Boys were told
Are you tired of your YouTube channel not getting the attention it deserves?
Boys were told to become more feminine to fit in with the times, to make room for traditionally marginalized groups, even as their ranks among the educated elite began to plummet. The Me Too movement, the rise of wokeness, the enforcement of cancel culture, identified, yes, some true bad actors, but also spiraled out of control, resulting in a general atmosphere of persecution against young men. In any other era, teenagers who used offensive language would be disciplined appropriately, hopefully learn from the experience. With the rise of social media, however, it became possible to keep an ongoing log of transgressions and to punish the offenders in perpetuity. Is it any wonder then that young men have sought solace in media environments where sports and fitness are well liked and encouraged, where free speech is celebrated and political correctness is attacked, where it's okay to tell raunchy jokes and think girls are attractive and actually say so? And more importantly, where Trump is cast as a supportive figure. One of the ironclad rules of politics is that young people skew liberal and become more conservative as they age. According to a famous saying, often incorrectly attributed to Winston Churchill, if you're not a liberal when you're 25, you have no heart. And if you're not a conservative by the time you're 35, you have no brain. But Trump has reversed this tendency by winning the hearts of Gen Z. The Democratic Party, on the other hand, has convinced many young males that it hates them, and it is paying the consequences of that. I also think it's a lot of COVID. I've been reflecting on this a lot, though, because the numbers really lay bare what we know anecdotally to be true from talking to young people, from seeing how they interact with each other, seeing what means of communication, where they get their news, where they hang out. All of that has shifted just dramatically to the right in the last, it feels like in the last year, frankly, but the seeds of that were sown already. I think it's a lot of COVID has to do with it a lot, and then the phenomenons I was mentioning.
So when you say COVID, you're thinking about restrictions that felt like
restrictions on people's lives. I mean, shutting down schools, canceling extracurricular activities. You know, we knew, not at the very beginning, but after a short amount of time, that outdoor recreational activity was very safe, and yet that was still in this city. That was still really frowned upon for really long. The mental health of young people, I think, was completely sacrificed for the physical safety of older Americans. And I think there's a level of resentment there. How much kids, young people, were forced to put up with how isolating that was, how alienating that was, and how much frustration there is. And I think, even though the lockdowns came into being initially under Trump, I think the Democratic Party ended up getting a lot of blame for that, because at its most elite level were the Karen type shaming people who were like demanding that you looking at you in a sinister way if you weren't willing to make that sacrifice in perpetuity.
Yeah, look, I think that's a fair assessment. And I think that the Biden administration obviously was also thinking about this, even in the lingo that they used in the aftermath of those early lockdowns, what with hot vax summer clearly appealing to a certain demographic there. Your analysis is really interesting to me. I mean, it's very clear that the Democratic Party has a ton of work to do. And I myself, not surprisingly, have also been thinking quite a lot about why that is and why we've seen such dramatic shifts. I think that
you're a mom, but you're a cool mom.
I am a cool mom. I need one of those T-shirts. You know, the history shows that there are many things that have happened over the past several decades that have chipped away at the Democratic so-called base over the years. I mean, I would start actually with the Clinton years and some of the policies that he and his administration advocated for that then did things like push away certain members of the labor movement, for example. That had long been the bedrock of the Democratic Party.
How about NAFTA type stuff?
Exactly. But I also think that there is a overemphasis on a certain segment of the party and their opinions. I'm talking about things like language policing, which I think you and I both agree has really gotten out of control. But also this sense that a relatively small portion of the party, specifically white progressives, really get a chance to define what the priorities are. I saw some really interesting polling that the Financial Times put out that asked questions of Latinos, Blacks, and white progressives. And they were questions like, Do you think that national security is important? And by wide margins, the Latino and Black respondents said yes, but white progressives said no. Things like, do you think America is the greatest nation on earth? And by wide margins, Latinos and Black Americans said that they did, but white progressives said no. So
Absolutely,
this is all
yes.
illustrating my point, right? That there's a very small but large microphone wielding segment of the party that I think has come to really dictate what everybody is quote unquote supposed to think.
I completely agree with that. And it's interesting that those people claim to speak for the entire party and claim to speak for minorities and hold far more, I would say, radical views on language policing and describe that as speaking on behalf of the safety and well-being of minority voters who do not hold those views.
Right, it's like the
far
defund
less
the police
radical.
conversation
Exactly.
we had before.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a broken record on this. As you know, I'm left of center, and I think that the party has a way of getting back to a better footing, but it runs through economic issues. It runs through the types of concerns that ordinary people have to worry about every single day, whether it is my favorite topic, transportation, how are they getting around, getting to their jobs, getting to the fun things that they want to do, or it's access to jobs at all. And I think that that's part of the thing that the Democratic Party really, really needs to hone in on.
Well, I hope they don't listen to you, so they keep listening.
That's fair.
But they should if they know what's good for them. We'll have more Rising right after this. Stay with us.